Jai Hind everyone, I welcome you again to another session of Consumer Behavior and Marketing Communication. This is from Unit 2 and this is session 3 of Unit 2. So today I'll be taking you through another important aspect of consumers' buying behavior, that how consumers' behavior is being impacted by different factors, and out of those many factors, culture is one of the factor which is impacting consumers. While as said that consumer buying behavior is influenced by many other factors, how consumer make buying decision, what they buy, from where they buy, how much they buy is very much determined by the environment an individual lives in or upbringing. So culture may be a personality of a society, as it is broader in sense and it is all pervasive in nature, inclusive of language, customs, traditions, norms and laws, even religion, art, music and many more. It also includes the interest of people, the work practices and orientation, and also people's attitude towards general and specific issues. So it also determines the do's and don'ts of a society and specifies all that is acceptable and all that is not. It is reflective of many elements like values, beliefs, customs, rituals, language, laws even. And this does not imply that cultures are truly rigid. In fact, they evolve and adapt to changing situations and time. So in a nutshell, I must say that culture is something that is learned. So this the definition given by the chief man, what culture is, it's a sum total of learned beliefs, values and customs that serve to regulate the consumer behavior of members of a particular society. Culture is a society's personality. It is unique in itself and differentiated from others. It is further divided into various subcultures. And culture is also generational and is passed on from one generation to another. A culture of a society also has a bearing on buying patterns and consumption behavior of an individual. Right. So, the kind of product and services and brands that consumers buy or consumes are all based on their cultural and subcultures. Like, for example, the food we eat, the kind of cloth we prefer to wear are all impacted by our culture, our custom, tradition, norms, and values. So, coming to the feature or characteristics of a culture, that culture is natural. Culture and its impact on consumer behavior can be better explained by, having an understanding of the nature and the characteristic of a culture. So as that culture is natural and it permeates naturally into a social system, it inbreed into a member of a social system. That's the reason I said it's all pervasive. It influences the manner in which an individual behaves, as consciously or subconsciously. We are all governed by our culture. Not only do people use their value and beliefs to govern their behavior, but also expect that others' behavior would also be similar and consistent, because we all share the culture. So in terms of consumer behavior, the kinds of food we buy and we eat, or the food we eat or the cloth that we purchase or wear are all governed by the socialization process. Then culture helps in satisfaction of the needs. In fact, it exists as it helps satisfy the needs of the people. Beliefs, values, customs, tradition help govern a social system and specify the manner in which in a social system should behave. Right. So, however, such value, beliefs, custom, and tradition that we'll be discussing in further slides, all these continue to exist as long as they meet the needs of the people in a society. That is why culture evolves with passage of time. As the need of the people evolve, belief, value, custom, tradition also undergo change so as to meet and match the newer needs and wants. Like, for example, in earlier times, people preferred eating their whole meals at home. In fact, eating out was considered unhealthy and undesirable. So with the change in a society and the emergence of dual income households, women started working, people have begun, eating out of home. The fast food culture isn't. This has given a boost to the fast food and restaurant industry. Thus, we see that when a value system fails to satisfy the members of a social system, it is adapted. It undergo a change, modified to suit newer social patterns and traits. So, marketer must be conscious of newly developed and embraced value, custom, and traditions so as to be able to take advantage of the situation. Then I say that culture is a learned response. People are not born with the culture. This is how people learn from the socialization process. It is a result of socialization process. So there occurs a socialization process right from one's childhood, a process that continues throughout the life. So culture is imparted by this very process of socialization. We are imparted by a family of orientation and family of procreation, as well as our friends throughout our life. People learn from family and friends about what are acceptable and what is not in terms of values and behaves. Right? We'll be discussing in further slides that how learning is happen as a socialization process. So then culture is shared. People to have their own unique culture, people to have their own family culture, but it is accepted and imbibed by all the members of a social system. In fact, it ties together the people that form a social system. So social institutes like family, educational institutes like school, colleges, university, political institutes like law, public policy, leaders in government, and religious institutes like places of worships, artifacts. All of these help in transmitting this culture to the member of a society. Even the mass media, print media, audiovisual also has a role to play in transmitting the culture. Also today, culture and subcultures are shared by people within and outside one culture, right? Mass media has a big role to play with the various satellite channels for viewership across India and higher TRP rating. The various soap operas and serials reflect cultures of all kinds. Even Bollywood and Hollywood movies are playing a big role in transmitting these cultural elements. Then culture is dynamic in nature. It's not static. It evolves constantly with time. It adapts itself to the changing environment. As said above, that values, beliefs, customs, traditions continue to exist as long as they satisfy the needs and wants of the people. And once they cease to satisfy people needs, they need to be changed. Then culture is similar yet different. Many we'll be talking in the first slides. There are different level of culture, like supranational culture, national culture. So these are somehow integrated. There are something that can be shared, and there are something that can be different from one culture to another culture. Right, then culture describes the ideal standard of behavior. It determines what to do, and what ought to do, and what not to do. This is what. Now coming to some elements of culture, the one of the element is beliefs. So beliefs consist of a very large number of mental or verbal statements that reflect a person's particular knowledge and assessment of something, whereas values are beliefs. However, values differ from other beliefs because they must meet the following criteria, like they are relatively few in number as comparative to beliefs. They serve as a guide for culturally appropriate behavior. They are enduring or difficult to change as comparative to beliefs. Even they are not tied to specific object or situations. They are values are widely accepted by the members of the society. Right? So they could assume both positive means do's and negative connotations that are indicative of appropriate thoughts. This is what a value is. Then we have another element like language. Language is a mean to communicate with people in a social setup. As we know that man is a social animal and he needs to communicate with others. So it is the common language that binds together the people in a social structure. Then myths another element of a culture. Myths are legendary folk tales or stories that describe events and occurrence. Myths may or may not be, relate, uh, uh, close to reality. So they are imaginary, many a time are fictitious, and comprise characters that are gods, heroes, and common men, and ultimately aimed at giving lessons to people with respect to the causes and effect, good and bad, right and wrong. So myths describe the values that member of a social structure should share. Then there are some certain things like laws. Laws are principles, rules, or regulations by an authority. Right? So they establish rites, ceremonies, and proceedings that are symbolic in nature. Rituals are collective in nature, right? Rituals are prescribing the process for conduct of religious and social rites. Then customs are overt modes of behavior. Customs are habitual practices that formulate the established way of doing things, and it reflect culturally acceptable pattern of behavior. They reflect a practice that have permanent continuance and are so long established that they have the force of law. In other words, I can say they are conventions. People in a social system follow such practices collectively. So custom consists of everyday or a routine behavior. All the beliefs and values are guides for behavior. Customs are usual and these are acceptable ways of behaving. An understanding of various cultures can help marketers predict customers or consumers' acceptance of their product or the features of the product. Here is an example to make you understand that how custom of मीठा खाने के साथ मीठा. So Cadbury constantly using this cultural aspect to become a part of the consumption ritual of the user, like in the ceremony of in any festivity, any festival, any ceremony, any occasion of happiness. This can be used as a substitute for a sweet, like खाने के बाद मीठे में कुछ मीठा हो जाए. तो it is replacing the very sweets, and having a sweet is a part of a custom. It's a part of a culture in Indian society. Then coming to levels of a subjective culture, there we have 3 level. One is supranational level, a national level, and a group level factors or group level culture. So when I say a supranational level, it reflects the underlying dimension of culture that impact multiple cultures or different societies. So within a globe or in a world, we have a different countries, and these different countries have a different cultural values, beliefs, languages. Right, then come on a national level factor. These such as shared core values, customs, personalities, and predispositional factors that tend to capture the essence of a national character of a citizen. So an individual can be determined by the national character. Like here in India, we have a national Indian culture. Then a group level factors are concerned with various subdivisions of a country or a society. They might include subculture, difference in membership, and different reference group differences. Like if I talk about associative groups or dissociative groups. Scott Temple in New York is a religious subculture with followers all over the world, and it adheres to the values of compassion towards all form of life. So this is it's kind of a subculture. Then another important aspect to know about how culture is learned. I said that one of the feature or a characteristic of culture is that culture is learned phenomena. People are not born with the culture. It can be learned. So there are 3 distinct forms of learning: formal learning, informal learning, and a technical learning. So when I say formal learning, adults and older siblings teach young family member how to behave. Right? This is what a formal learning is. Informal is when a child learns primarily by imitating the behavior of selected others, by seeing how my father behaves, how my mother behaves. This is what a formal learning. This came in the process of socialization. Even we as a consumer socialization, if we talk about, we see the consumption pattern, the type of product being consumed at home, right? Then come with the technical learning. Teachers instruct the child in an educational environment as to what, how, and why it should be is a kind of a technical learning. So this is how an individual learn. Advertising and marketing communication are also influencing all these three types of cultural learning. It again most influences informal learning by providing models of behavior to imitate. The way our elders behave, we try to imitate. So this is especially true for visible or conspicuous products that are evaluated in public setting, where peer influence is likely to play an important role. The brand, the product category preferred by the peers, the colleagues. Then how culture is communicated. One of the important aspects, how culture is transformed, how it is communicated. So there are two things, enculturation and acculturation. So as I said that culture is learned, there are two processes. One is enculturation and acculturation. So that culture is not born, it is learned as a result of a socialization process, right? There could be three ways of learning, as earlier we have talked about: a formal learning, informal, and a technical learning. Even a consumer, it is through our culture learning that we are taught what is regarded as a desirable purchase and what is not. Similar is with respect to brands. Our perception about brands is influenced by by the views and opinions of our family, friends, and colleagues. So without a common language, shared meaning could not exist. So there is something that should be common in a learned culture. Marketers must choose appropriate symbol and advertising. Symbols, artifacts are like in Hindus we do put satya or we put om in any spiritual occasions. Even sharing of a culture is something that marketers can use known symbols for associations, for associating these things. So enculturation is how we so when I say enculturation, it's a process by which an individual learns about his or her own culture. Enculturation is simply a process where a child learns about their own culture and adopts into it, whereas acculturation is the process in which the people of one culture adopt the culture of the other that is not originally their own. So the original culture of the person changes due to adoption of the culture of the others. People who spend much of the time in the foreign are likely to adopt. Even we Indian, when we do adopting the culture or the food habits or the food choices of other culture, like we started adopting fast foods, we started adopting Italian food or the Chinese food. So this is how a acculturation process happens. Then moving to further issues, that a ritual again is a way through which a culture can be shared or can be learned. So ritual is a type of a symbolic activity consisting of a series of steps, and it extended over the human life cycle. Marketers realize that rituals often involve the product or the artifacts. Artifacts can be any symbol or any physical form of in which a culture can be reflected. So it's a symbolic activity consisting of a series of steps occurring in a fixed sequence and repeated over time. Like it's important for marketers to understand this ritual, how this ritual tend to be replete with the ritual artifacts in form of products that are associated with or somehow enhance performance of the ritual. So like wearing mangal suit, putting this bindi in a Hindu culture is a ritual. So ritualistic behavior is any behavior that is made into a ritual. Here are some examples to make you understand. Like in a wedding is a selected ritual and artifacts like white gown, something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue is an artifact. Birth of a child. In US, a saving board is gifted. A silver baby spoon is gifted as an artifact. So all those physical elements, any symbol which is attached with the ritual is an artifact. In a birthday, card, present, cake, candles, balloon, these are all artifacts. 50th wedding anniversary, catered party, card, gift, display of photos of a couples together, graduation ceremony, pen, US saving bond, card, wristwatch. Valentine Day artifacts related to Valentine Day can be the candies, the cards, the flowers. Even in New Year Eve, the it's a ritual to celebrate it. Whereas the artifacts can be the champagne, the party, the fancy dresses. So this is how marketers are making, use of how these artifacts can be put into. If I talk about Indian Railway, an example of ritual diversity of Indian Railway. So it's a a palace on the wheel where the people are bowing. The staff is bowing to the guest. Amul is the taste of India. Emerging culture, you can see here on a slide. A Vodafone, a Valentine Day is very much associated with gifting, or gifting a red rose is very much associated to Valentine Day, and this is how it is portrayed in Vodafone, still in this very culture, Indian culture. Another example of, you can see here, retirement, health, education, and wealth creation plans guarantee a future where all our goals are met. So, jeete raho, future guarantee, no tension is a punchline for for an insurance company. There are certain core values, like how these core values are impacting consumers' buying behavior. So one of the core values, if I talk about Indian consumers, is a family orientation, saving orientation, festivities, shopping as a ritual, mythology. There are certain food habits, so we'll be talking one by one. When I say family orientation, this type of consumer mixes brand from unorganized sector in order to balance their expenditure with the savings. So here is an example, like a middle class consumer may buy a branded detergent powder for special clothes, and they may buy a low quality detergent soap for ordinary clothes. This is just an example to make you understand how family orientation is very much impacting consumers' buying behavior. The choices of tea, the choices of toothpaste brand is very much reflected the family orientation. Then saving orientation is a part of Indian culture. So famous brand Tanishq bought the installment scheme where customer pays the fixed installment amount for a specific period of time, and after maturity they can buy the jewelry from Tanishq store. So this is reflected in Indian consumers behavior. Festivity, again, one of the reflection of a culture, and how marketers are implying consumers buying, understanding of consumers buying behavior during this cultural or these festivities. Then a food habit of any culture, especially if I talk about Indian culture. This is the reason the cereal like Kellogg's was first introduced in the market, and it was not succeed because of the reason the food habits here in India is totally different from that of the US and other country. Mythology, again, there again some ways people perform, people do behave. So this is all about culture, and this make you understand how culture is impacting consumers' buying behavior, and how marketers can imply the understanding of cultural influence on consumers' buying behavior. Thank you so much.